You hoping to erase this whole narrative about not winning a playoff game?
Oh, for sure. It's when to go home right now. I want to win regardless. I don't really care about what people got to say. I only been in the playoffs twice. My young career. Other people been in the league forever, haven't been in the playoffs at all. But it is what it is. But definitely trying to erase that narrative right there. That's the number one right now in my mind.
Lamar Jackson talking about the reality that he's 0-2 in the postseason, and with each passing loss, the narrative grows and grows. The distraction becomes larger and larger. Just ask the Bengals from 2011 through 2015. But, Peter, I would have suggested a different answer to Lamar Jackson when asked the question about the playoff narrative. I would say it's already been debunked. It's been win or go home for the last 5 weeks. We've played 5 playoff games this year. We've been up against it, and we've won every single one of those games. If we lose it, we're done. So this isn't really the playoffs to us. This is just a continuation of what we've been doing for the last month.
Yeah, plus, I think, Mike, look, everybody is going to want to see Lamar Jackson play well in the playoffs. I think it would have been a different story against the Chargers 2 years ago or against the Titans last year. It would have been a different story if Lamar Jackson had played well in either one of those games, and he really didn't. If you play great and lose in some duel, you lost. That's just the way it goes. But he hasn't played well in those games. And so I look at things like, Peyton Manning. Was he 27 years old when he won his first playoff game? There's some number like that. But I'm not going to say that if Lamar Jackson hasn't won a playoff game by the time he's 26 years old, well, he's no good, or his legacy has been written. It hasn't. His career isn't even 1/3 over, for crying out loud. And so, look, he's got to play, and he's got to play well. There's no doubt about it. And you're right. He's played great down the stretch of this season when he couldn't have known it 5 weeks ago. But you're right. One loss, and it's very likely they wouldn't be playing right now. So that is what, if I'm a Ravens fan, that's what I'm focusing on. My quarterback got us here.
And the challenge is, and the reality, I believe, is that with each loss in the playoffs, and then you have 12 months until you get another opportunity, the narrative gets a little bit larger and a little bit larger, and it gets harder. The pressure is greater to finally get that first win. And the sooner you get it, the better. The sooner you get it, you kill that narrative and you can focus on winning your next playoff game a week later. And for the Ravens and for Lamar Jackson, I think that's the key, especially for Lamar Jackson, because I think the pressure on him, not just to win, but to have a better game than what we've seen in his 2 playoff losses will be critical. And you throw in the fact, Peter, that they're on the road. They're facing the Titans, a team that beat the Ravens in Baltimore in overtime. It was a great game, 30-24, with a touchdown run by Derrick Henry to ice it. It puts even extra pressure on the Ravens to settle this score. And they are going to be looking at those helmets and thinking, these are the guys last year that knocked us out of the postseason. And I hate using the term revenge because all the Titans did was their job a year ago, but if you can use that to your advantage, if you can, and this is the challenge for John Harbaugh, more so than Lamar Jackson, how do you properly communicate to your guys this week? How do you get them in the right mindset? Are they already there and you don't really need to do anything? What do you do to get them ready to go to Tennessee as favorites? They can't even go in with a chip on their shoulder because they're favorites. How do you get them in the right place where they can go out and take care of business? That's going to be a challenge for John Harbaugh.
I think the most interesting line in this game, or on this weekend, is the Ravens being favored at Tennessee. Look, you take away the Tennessee at Green Bay game over the last, 6 weeks? I mean, the Ravens or the Titans have looked like the 27 Yankees, for crying out loud. They've been unstoppable. And, if anything, compared to a year ago, Mike, look, Derrick Henry is incredible. He's already had more 200-yard games in his career than Jim Brown or Barry Sanders had in their careers. Wow. And he's only 27 years old. So, but the thing I look at with Tennessee is, Look at Ryan Tannehill. Look at how much better, I think anyway, he is than he was a year ago. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine Tennessee playing at home being an underdog to too many teams, but that's a weird line to me.
The defense, I think, is the problem with Tennessee. And look at what the Ravens did last week, in Cincinnati, 404 rushing yards, and they have been grinding it up all year long. I mean, so much for high-flying pass offenses. You got the Titans, who have Derrick Henry with his 2,027 yards. You've got the Ravens with the three-headed monster of Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, and Gus Edwards. Mark Ingram isn't even a factor anymore. Those three guys contributed to that performance last week, significantly contributed to it with 404 yards. This could just be ground and pound for 3 hours. It could be a 2-hour and 15-minute game.
Yeah. I think both teams want to play that way, Mike, and we'll see what happens. But the one thing about this game that really fascinates me is that I think both teams can play both ways. You want to get in a scoring contest? Ryan Tannehill, has got a great receiver, in Brown. He's got a very good tight end in Jonnu Smith, and on the other side, you could see the Ravens playing the exact same way. They're very happy with running the ball 55 times. If you let them do it, they're going to do it. But they're also okay if they need to get into a throwing contest because they're confident. As the season is worn on, they're more confident in their passing game. So that's why I think this is I think it's the game of the weekend. I think it's so much fun, so interesting. Now, in terms of drama, probably the Cleveland and Pittsburgh's the game of the weekend because of how weird the lead up to the game is. But just as far as a football game goes, I mean, I love that Tennessee-Baltimore game.
One big difference between this game and their meeting in the regular season, Week 11 in Baltimore, Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams available for the Baltimore Ravens. They weren't there the last time around when Derrick Henry had not a high-end Derrick Henry day, but it was good enough to get it done, and he popped that run in overtime to pull off the victory. Last year, though, in that playoff game in primetime in Baltimore, 193 rushing yards for Derrick Henry. So Henry, obviously, the key piece of the puzzle to the Tennessee offense. And he has to be able to answer what the Ravens collectively do running the ball. And it really is strange to think about so much running in an age where it's so much passing. But as Chris Sims said earlier this week, it's cyclical, although he struggled with cyclical, and we had some fun with that. But it is cyclical, and teams are starting to recognize that as defenses spread out to deal with passing offenses, and also we don't see as much tackling as we used to in practice. There aren't padded practices. The art of tackling is lost in many NFL locker rooms. There's a temptation, and there's a benefit, and there's a reward to running the football.
Look, in my opinion, I think there are so many teams in the NFL this year. I almost think even though the numbers are not gigantic, I think there are so many dangerous running backs in football right now. And I don't just mean Derrick Henry. I mean a bunch of different style running backs. You've got the combination of power with an outside move of like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. You've got the power game of Derrick Henry. You've got the elusiveness of Alvin Kamara. You've got the sort of bang it, but also be able to get outside of Dalvin Cook. There are so many interesting running backs and so many different styles right now that people are getting. And Mike, you're getting these guys with value picks. I didn't say the words Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey. Those are, and I certainly didn't say Leonard Fournette, but those are the top 10 running backs that you just don't see that you need to do anymore. Alvin Kamara way down in the second round, Derrick Henry, second round. So many of these picks you're noticing, just like receivers, you can find really good ones in the second round, even, DK Metcalf late in the second round.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.